who are you?
I'm John Bauters. I'm the mayor of the city of Emeryville, California, here in the East Bay. And welcome to our city. We are just over 1 square mile of a lot of fun under one roof, and we are going to take a really short tour to some very specific new bicycle infrastructure improvements in the city that we've implemented in the last couple years, and also highlight and point out a couple other projects. You're now on the South Bayfront Bridge. We opened this in December of 2021. It provides an east-west connection across 8 lanes of railroad track. Our Amtrak station, which is the western hub for the Amtrak Zephyr route. So across the tracks from us, you have 500 units of brand new housing that just finished moving in people this past month. And the Emeryville Greenway sits just beyond the track here. The last segment is about to be completed and ends a terminus at a new 2.5-acre city park. So now you can have the proverbial 15-minute city in Emeryville. You can have it in 5 minutes. You live in either of these neighborhoods, you can do everything you need. Doyle Street is a north-south street that's wedged between Hollis and San Pablo, which are 2 more traffic-centric arterials. Prior to COVID, this was a route that was a bike boulevard route, but it had a ton of cut-through traffic from people trying to avoid traffic lights. So it's a residential area. We have middle school and a YMCA over here. We have very much loved Doyle Hollis Playground over here. We have the mini tot lot, and we wanted to provide traffic calming. So if you look up the street, what we did during COVID is we actually came out here and said, let's actually fulfill the bike plan vision. So we closed 2 blocks. We're standing in one of them. This is a car-free block that we created between the park and playgrounds. And we did 3 blocks up from here that we'll ride in a second. And we took all the southbound parking and travel lane and we converted it into active transportation only space. And by making a discontinuous route for cars through the city, we essentially eliminated most of the car traffic that came through here. So we're on the northern segment of the Emeryville Greenway. This is the original portion of it. It's over a decade old. And if you were to look behind you, you'd see all kinds of townhouses whose front doors line up right onto the Greenway. We just installed this bike counter in the springtime, and thank you, number 324. It's keeping track for us how many people have been walking and biking on the Greenway each day. We are planning to install a smaller second version of this on the bike bridge to track movement across the bridge. And we made a number of improvements to all the Greenway crossings on the northern third of the city. We installed improvements to the crossings a couple years ago that include speed tables. We actually have camera detectors that detect pedestrian and bike movement on the Greenway that activate flash beacons. We narrowed the crossings to put some daylighting at the crossings. This is the pedestrian activation detector, so it goes across here. It's got an infrared beam that senses movement. So as a pedestrian walks across, the lights will flash. I move back and forth, I activate the pedestrian activation light. On the pole back there, there's a camera, and a bike coming about 100 feet out, it will trigger the activation light as well, so that vehicles get the signal far enough in advance of a bicycle coming, and they slow down before they cross the intersection here. So this is the bike pass-through. It is at the junction of Horton Street and 45th Streets. And 45th Street is a bicycle boulevard that goes east-west through the city. This building behind us was converted into what's going to be lab space. It's called the Lab. The community benefits list included blowing a hole through the existing building and actually having the 45th Street Bike Boulevard and pedestrian path pass straight through this building into the new 2.5-acre city park that is behind it. But rather than making people navigate around this block and this neighborhood to find the city park, bikes have the priority access straight through. So I've been dying for this thing to open. I live a block from here, and I happened upon it the other day, this is a couple weeks ago now, and they were taking the fence down, and I said, oh, are you taking it down for any reason? They said, we're showing the building to someone, a prospective tenant, but our boss just told us to keep the fence down. So I said, are you serious? Like, I can bike through it right now? The guy's like, yeah, you can bike through it. So the irony was I got to bike through it first, and I posted a video on Twitter of it being open, and I've just been inundated with people posting videos of themselves biking through it, coming over here to visit it, to bike through it. So when you build something, you know, innovative, and you build something that is people-oriented, people really want to celebrate that and be part of it. Behind me is one of the cultural identity markers of the city. Emeryville is historically a artist community, and just behind me here there's a ton of affordable housing that is occupied by artists who live in cooperative low-income housing. This was done by Nigel Sussman. It's called the Emeryville Treasure Map. It's one of our murals. We have about 20 murals now in the city. This one is actually a little more tongue-in-cheek. Everything on this map is actually a reference to something in the city. Came by this every day. I lived down the street, checked in on the muralist and talked to him, and he asked me at one point, you know, what do you think about it? I said, I love it, but my dog, she's not a big fan. He's kind of laughed, and he's like, why? I said, well, this is a city that's full of dogs, and there are no dogs on it. He was like, oh, that's a really good point. We came by 2 days later. He goes, well, what does she think about it now? And I looked up and I said, well, it looks the same. And he pointed over to the far end of the mural, and my dog is in the mural now. So she's forever on the Emeryville Treasure Map out here walking the streets of the Park Avenue district.